On Facebook, we're live, and Instagram too. Fantastic. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's live video. I am your holistic nutrition practitioner. My name is Lucas Simmons, and I am here in Calgary. Whereabouts are you guys? All right, we don't have anybody on yet. I was starting a few minutes late because when I came home to my office, it was in use, so I had to go create another space. This COVID thing's going to drive me to the brink of jumping of things. Ugh. Hi, how's everybody doing? Welcome to this week's live Q&A. So we are doing this live both Instagram and Facebook, and I don't usually do it on Instagram anymore because it's been really tricky to try to figure out how to upload videos. Even though I'm keeping to the time span, I think it's because I talk about how to empower yourself, actually, to take your own health and how you're feeling in a day-to-day in your own hands. I don't know if that's why I can't post things to Instagram. Regardless, we're here today, and the idea of this last Tuesday live of every month, as we always do, it's open as a Q&A. So I want you to hit me with your questions. And I mean, the topic of things here in the land of good food and you has been about mood. Specifically, supporting through balancing moods and supporting through anxiety. That's been the topic for the month of May. But it's not the only thing that we need to cover. I work in nutrition, and my bag is always about helping people feel real good and to take some of that to insource your own ability to work at how your body moves through the day, how you get through your day. What are those pieces you can put in place to support you? And I do see clients one-on-one, and we chat a lot about what are some of those top foods that you can implement to help support balance, moods, or support sleep if that's what you're struggling with, or support through an autoimmune diagnosis, those types of things. But we can also, there's so much that is common to everybody. I don't know if you, for those who are catching this live right now, I did a chat with the lovely Malcolm at the Light Cellar on Thursday, I think it was. And it ended up being live to the Facebook page there at the Light Cellar. And then now it's been, Malcolm kindly uploaded it to the YouTube site, to their channel, the Light Cellar channel. And so I just did a blog post on it last night to link through to that so it's easy to find. So if you're interested in catching this hour-long conversation that Malcolm and I had last Thursday, it was such a great chat, and made me realize a lot of really important things, that I value my colleagues and I value the input of people who are wise and thoughtful and asking questions about what's happening. And I don't mean about the COVID thing, not at all. Like, I mean more asking the questions of, okay, how am I feeling and how am I moving through the day? Now, we started that talk on Thursday with a really sobering statistic. It's something that was put out by the Public Health Agency of Canada, I think is the official title of what it is. And this is a number that they came out with in December of 2019. So what, like 6 months ago, maybe? So this was the end result. Listen to this. This is kind of eye-opening. 44% of adults, this is a Canadian number, 44% of adults age 20 and over, that's our entire adult population here, 44% of our adult population in Canada has at least one of the top 10 most common chronic disease diagnoses. So first, almost half of our adult population has at least one chronic disease diagnosis. That's the first part to take away from this. That's almost half. When you read that, it was a statistic that first showed up in Alberta Views magazine back in the fall in I suppose in December maybe, or January, somewhere close to it. And it was so interesting to me. I read that statistic and I thought, wow, that's a big number. Wait a second, has at least one. What? So then I start diving a little bit deeper into this, and it's at least one chronic disease diagnosis. So almost half of our adult population has at least one. And that means of that 44% of people that they're counting, there are some that have more than one. They might have two or three, or God forbid, more. And then I dove into the research to try to figure out, what does this number mean? And then I found out that the 44% is actually just counting the first top 10 most common chronic disease diagnoses. In that list of top 10 are the big hitters that you would assume are in there. Cardiovascular disease. Asthma and COPD is one of those top 10 most common chronic diseases. So is depression and anxiety. That's our topic this month. So are, what were some of the other big hitters? Type 2 diabetes. Alzheimer's and dementia was in the top 10. And what else was there? There was some skin stuff somewhere in there. I can't remember what it was. But it's so fascinating to me. This number of 44% of our 20 and up, right? So our adults, 44% of our adult population in Canada has at least one of those top 10 most common chronic diagnoses. What about number 11 to 46 in the list of most common chronic diseases? What about 11 to 46? They're not counted in that 44%. So now you start to understand the depth of what's going on in our current day and age. Is this chronic disease? What's happening? And these are questions I am asking all the time, because why is no one sounding the alarm on this? Who has agreed to this? Who has said, oh, well, that looks like a nice number to have. Let's not mess with it. Why is nobody sounding the alarm and saying it's time to change these numbers, or let's talk about how we can best support our humans to get through the day so they're not part of that statistic? I mean, hands up if you're part of that 44%. Totally. Hands up if you want to stay part of that 44%. No, obviously, I'm pretty sure. And having struggled through chronic disease, then I know that there's also really low energy that comes with it, always. Brain fog, low energy, motivation, sometimes feels like you take one step forward and you'll have to take 2 steps back. If that's you, I'm hearing you. And how do you move through this, right? Oof. Well, there's some pretty obvious things that we can start with. And, sorry, I've got a hair in my face. So there's some obvious things that we can start with. And I do a lot of one-on-one work. Hit me up with your questions, by the way. I'm just talking till somebody asks me something, because this is a live Q&A. We do this the last Tuesday of every month, where the Royal We, are soliciting your questions and ways to help you figure out, could nutrition help you, or how can nutrition help you today with what you've got going on? So I'm just talking about a presentation that I did with Malcolm Saunders at the Light Cellar last Thursday. We actually did it over Zoom. And the link for that is available, well, here on Instagram. It's on the link in my profile. And here, I'm actually just going to type in, that's my website. If you go to my website here on Facebook, then you'll be able to find it through the blog. And it's the first blog. It's easy to find. So you'll find the video there. And we start with that very sobering statistic. So what spurs me to do what I do? All of those top 10 most common chronic diseases. That's your cardiovascular disease, asthma, COPD, depression and mood stuff and anxiety. We're also talking about dementia and Alzheimer's. Those big hitters. Type 2 diabetes is actually one of the top 10. So there's so many of these chronic diseases that are just so common that it's almost like we're not even talking about it. It's kind of like if you're walking down the street, every second person you're crossing has a chronic disease. Not to say 2 or 3 or 4. So every second person you're passing on the street has a chronic disease, but only one of the top 10. So when you start to wonder, how does that number change the more people you add to this? Or the more, now you start looking outside those top 10. Is this almost every person you're walking by on the street? Is this okay? What are some of the things that are common to everybody? So yeah, we're talking about mood and anxiety this month, but there's so many common things that can benefit folks who are working through any of the top 75 most common chronic diseases, and then the 200 that come after it. I don't know that there's that many diagnoses. I'm not counting them, but I'm being a bit flippant, but it's the same work for so many of these. There's a bit of tweaking that can happen depending on where the chronic health concern is showing up or which system is kind of feeling it the hardest. There's a way too of sort of trying to mitigate what kinds of things are contributing and which systems are out that are now tipping other systems. Case in point, so I work a lot with histamines and clients who have histamine issues. So when it's a histamine issue, it can be one of many different things that is at the root of it. At the root of it, though, will be chronic low-grade inflammation, always. But here's the trick. If you start to do an anti-inflammatory protocol where you're really actively working at reducing inflammation, sometimes you can make histamine things worse. Oh, okay, so wait. And I know because I was one of those people. You hear so much about reducing inflammation, and so I should be making bone broth and eating 7 cups of sauerkraut every day. So you start doing that, but oh my God, I feel worse. I was that person. So when it comes to a histamine question, then I need to start doing a bit of digging with my client to figure out, okay, is it a gut issue? Because when you have a histamine issue at the gut level, you start to lose the ability to make an enzyme called DAO, diamine oxidase. This diamine oxidase is a naturally occurring enzyme that your intestinal tract makes to break down histamines coming in through foods. If you have a histamine issue, it's not because you have a histamine intolerance. It's not because your histamines are the evil guy. It's because you can't clear them once you've had them. You need histamines for so many different things in the body. You need it to fall asleep. You need it for digestion. You need it for an inflammatory reaction, actually. You need it to help keep you alive. Histamines are not the issue. But when they show up for someone, so case in point, the way it showed up for me was hay fever and migraines and acid reflux, actually. And so for me, I had to start doing some deep diving to figure out, well, you can't just reduce inflammation with that. Because when you reduce inflammation, you are, yes. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that for sure. Okay. Vashti has a great question. Okay, I'll bring the question up in just a second. Let me finish my thought, though, first. Thank you for the question. So then we need to do a little bit of digging to figure out what's contributing to the histamines not being able to be cleared all the time. Is there a lot of histamines coming into the picture? And are you able to break them down? There's a couple of different ways we break them down. One of them is at the gut level. The other one is at the liver level. So sometimes there's a bit of both. So if you start to improve the gut level, does that take care of some stuff? Then if you start supporting the liver to do something called methylation, if you offer that support, now you start to improve how best you can now move histamines out. So I like to say it this way. So if you've gone down this pathway, down inflammation, and we need to take you out of there, then if it's just inflammation, it's steps 1 through 10. We take you out this way, very clean, very easy, fairly straightforward. If you've been down this pathway for too long, now we're talking about a liver that's having a hard time or your gut level that's having a hard time. And at that point, we start to involve the adrenals. The adrenals are always part of the picture because your body perceives it's been under attack for a very long time, very often when there's a histamines issue. And histamines are the body's way of actually protecting you against the outside world. So to me, when someone has a histamine issue, it's because they don't feel safe. On whatever level, biochemically, emotionally, physically, somehow, somewhere, they're not feeling safe. So you can do all the work you want to take them out of inflammation, but you have the chance of now sending them down a side hustle deeper into histamine issues. So first things first, more than anything, when there's a histamine issue in the picture, first we establish safety. Then we look, can we calm down the adrenals and let them know that we've got them? So first we make friends with your body. First we start to reduce how much histamines are contributing to the picture, and we help set you up to feel like the world is with you and your body is working with you, not against you. And if you don't do this piece, you are not going to help support the body to come back to center. We're not fixing, we're not mending anything. It's always about balance. And when your body is off balance, you have to very systematically put those rocks in place to bring it back to balance. And if you don't do it in the right order, those rocks tumble and they won't make a beautiful stack. So when there's a histamine issue, case in point, then we need to start addressing, is it a gut issue? Is it a liver issue? Is it an adrenal issue? Do you feel safe? Okay, first we set up the safe. Then we'll start reducing inflammation. But before we even do that, can you move stuff out? If you can't move stuff out, then you're not going to be able to dump those spent histamines. So we actually need to look after that first, and so on and so forth. So it's very individual and it's very specific to each person who's struggling with things. One of the interesting things about histamines for me is that it is directly related very often to to anxiety. Anxiety can be exacerbated when there's a histamine issue, or vice versa. So I say all of this to say, yeah, we're talking about moods and anxiety today, but in all honesty, it is about inflammation and about taking stock about how long you've been in inflammation and how safe your body feels. I'm always going to start with safe. I'm always going to start with supporting you to feel like you got this, and I gotcha, and I'm your cheerleader. And then we'll put the pieces in place that feel manageable and doable. So now Vashti's asking her question: can you explain the way, or why? Why would can you explain why would fat metabolism be an issue when you think you're having enough probiotics or kraut, or would that also be a histamine issue? So fat metabolism can be an issue when you think you are having enough probiotics or kraut. Would that also be a histamine issue? Okay, so if you're having a hard time digesting fats, that can be contributing factors of a lot of different things, and it really depends on the person. And I know you, Vashti, but I don't super know your background. So when there's a hard time digesting fats, some people will say automatically it's a gallbladder issue. Right. No, actually, it's a liver issue. And it's the liver that makes bile that gets stored in the gallbladder that then comes out when you eat in order to trigger that release of bile. So you can now, the role of bile is a couple of folds. Bile actually sanitizes in a really natural and normal, what you want way, the intestinal tract. Bile also builds up a whole part of your stool. It bulks up your stool. Bile also does this magical thing where it takes fat globules and it breaks them down into smaller molecules. And bile does this so that your fat digesting enzymes can now get at the small globules. Imagine, I don't know if it depends how old you are, but there used to be a commercial where there was a dish soap of sorts that you would squirt a little drop on the top of a big soapy, sudsy, or super greasy sink of dirty dishes. And you put one drop of soap in the middle of this big fat slick on the top of the dishes. And the entire fat slick would go, and it would fritter away, and it would dissolve essentially to the edges of the container, that whatever your dishwater is in. I think of like camping container. Anyway, that's how I operate. So it's very similar the way that bile works. So bile comes in and it breaks your fat down into smaller molecules so that now your enzymes can get out there and pull out the nutrients it needs, and you can better digest and assimilate, which means get those nutrients into your body. Somebody who has fat metabolism issue is struggling to make bile. Hi, Debbie. So when you're struggling to make bile, is that a histamine issue? Not necessarily, but sometimes it can. I mean, of course, any combination thereof can, of course, happen in any human being. But if you're having a hard time with fat metabolism, then you're having a hard time getting some of those nutrients from your fat-soluble foods, from your fatty-containing foods, to get into your body. That now starts to also alter how well you can get minerals into your body. Fats help ferry minerals into the body. So if you're having a hard time with fat metabolism, is it directly linked to a histamine issue? I could see how over the long course of things that it could start to tip the scales to be more towards somebody who's having a hard time handling the histamines their body produces and that they're eating in their foods. Even though you're eating probiotic foods to help revive a liver function, there would then be evidence to me to do a little bit more digging. It would be very dependent on an intake and understanding what else is happening in the picture of things. But it would be, you guess why this would be happening to my 4-year-old? I can't guess. Wow, and a 4-year-old. So I only work with adults. If it's a kid who's having a hard time with fat metabolism, that needs to be addressed tout de suite and through a naturopath, actually, because this is not something that is supposed to happen at 4 years old, and to me is a bit of a worrier, a bit of a worrisome thing. And the reason is our fats are where we get all of our fat-soluble vitamins. So vitamin A, D, E, K2. A in the animal form is called retinol, and we need that for the integrity of our gut lining. We need it for our eyes. We need it to formulate memories and cognitive function. You need vitamin A for a thyroid to function properly. You need vitamin A for lots of different things. And key to that is actually the integrity of the gut lining to keep the cells nice and tight, and that mucosal barrier, which lives right there in level 2 at the gut. Vitamin D, we all know vitamin D3, of course, is an immune super guy, and it is quite deficient often in people who have low-grade chronic inflammation. Vitamin E is really super necessary for our livers to function well and to make very important antioxidant called glutathione. So you need vitamin E for so many functions of the body to help detoxify the body. Vitamin K2, again, is really necessary for nervous system health, brain health, and eye health, and for the formulation of bones. So in a 4-year-old who's having a hard time digesting fats, because he's in a building phase, because your little guy is growing, then that is something that needs to be addressed. And I would really recommend you check in with a naturopath first. There is somebody in town actually who is really well versed here in Calgary, and I know you're not far outside Calgary, but there is a holistic nutrition practitioner who's really well versed in children and nutrition. Her name is Deb Morgan. She's so great. She's so well versed. She is holistic nutrition, so she could also be a really good resource, and she's at Kids Health Revolution. Connect with her because this needs to actually be addressed like tout de suite. And it may require some supplemental support while the body gets back to center. And the beautiful thing about young children is they actually respond really well to a lot of this stuff, and they move through it way faster than like an almost 50-year-old would. So I would recommend you actually have that looked after, Vashti. Who knows why it's there? I can't say, and I have no idea. If he was born with a more sluggish liver, then that could actually be, oh, your hubby has the same thing. It could be a genetic thing. And it could have to do with some genetic mutations, at which point then you need to really put in some really stellar liver support. I'm one of those people who has that. There's so many different variations on it, but I've got one where my detoxification doesn't work very well, and my methylation processes do not work very well in my body. Consequently, same thing for my kid. Whoops. So then we eat a lot of foods that are supportive to the liver, but we're really mindful right now is liver season to really put in the extra pieces to put in place to support the liver at this stage. But if he's 4, I would do it tout de suite. And I mean, nutrition and food is really good, but you need to up your game a little bit. Sorry, I don't like saying that. I like to pretend that we can all just saunter and meander through the world and it's going to be okay. But sometimes, nope. Call today. So if you want some help, Vashti, I have some really awesome pediatrically minded naturopaths in town, and I will connect you. Just send me an email. Okay. All right. Thank you for your question, PS. So if anybody has any questions, we are talking about mood and anxiety this month. I'll stay on for another 7 minutes at least, and then if the questions keep coming, then we'll just stick around. But regardless if it's a question about mood or anxiety, ask any questions about nutrition. If you've had some doubts or wondering if nutrition might be a good fit for you, or how nutrition could specifically help and support you with where you're at in life, hit me up. Otherwise, I don't see any questions. Otherwise, I'm having a whole bunch of things. I have 6 pages of stuff here for mood and anxiety because I do these free things and then I get 1 or 2 questions and that's it. Well, maybe you don't need nutrition support. I suppose, maybe. Maybe I like to pretend that people need nutrition support, but most people are like, no, I don't. I just eat what I want. Okay, great. Have fun with that. Okay, what kind of systems are involved in mood stuff? Because that was the topic. When we're talking, like if somebody comes to see me and says, okay, my top main health concern is that I'm dealing with anxiety or depression or mood fluctuations, or I feel like my emotional resiliency is at nil. I cannot weather the storms that are coming. P.S. You are not alone. And also, sort of feels like it is on high alert these days too. The nutritionist's name, she's a holistic nutrition practitioner, is Deborah Morgan, and you'll find her at kidshealthrevolution.com. She's great. She's in Calgary and she's got loads of free resources as well, but connect with her one-on-one. And she is just so well-versed in gut healing protocols and gut supportive protocols, and how to make real food a reality for kids who are struggling with stuff. So what kind of systems are involved in mood? So when somebody comes to see me, then we need to do a little bit of digging to figure out, why are imbalanced moods happening? How long has it been going on? How do you move through them? What kinds of things have you put in place to support so far, and where do we need to head? So first we look into how the brain is doing, and how you're getting through the day. How your food is also fueling you, and what types of foods are fueling you. There's no judgment. There's really just tweaking and making things a little bit better. Then we start to look at adrenals. Often when there is anxiety, and adrenals typically will be one of the areas where there is an imbalance, where it shows up, especially for women in their 40s and up. Part of that is due to a hormonal shift, perimenopause into menopause. The production of some of our hormones that used to be done by our ovaries are slowly shifting over to our adrenals. And we used to make some hormones at the ovary level that are now, that job is going to the adrenals to make a similar hormone called DHEA. And DHEA is a brilliant hormone that helps keep things even keeled. But if your adrenals are having a hard time making ends meet at the end of the day, or halfway through the day, or in the morning even, this is where sometimes mood stuff starts to show up, especially in women in their 40s, going into their 50s, around the change, the perimenopausal change. And that will all be adrenal balance that is off kilter. So when I get one-on-one clients, then we start to dig to see, what stage are you at? What kind of stuff is going on? How long has this been going on? And what's it showing up as? And how do you move through your day? We take a look to see how your brain is feeling, how some of those nutrients getting to the brain are working. I try to do a little bit of digging to figure out, can you take foods and break them down into nutrients? That can often be one of the contributing factors. Do you not have stuff working well at the gut? Because that's where you make the serotonin. Serotonin is the feel-good chemical, right? When you are on some medications, some of their action is to help you recycle serotonin because you're having a hard time hanging on to it or making it for whatever reason. Well, that 90% of your serotonin is made at the gut level by your microbiome. So in the digging with clients, then we start to figure out, I want to find out how your guts are doing, how your microbiome is working. What kinds of things do you have in place that are supporting this? And how can we shift things so that your microbiome can work a little bit harder, and we can tweak things so that works a little bit better. So you're now better able to make that serotonin so you can actually support that balanced function. That's one of the things. The other piece to this is that there is a lot of new science that's showing that when mood imbalances are showing up, it is, we'll call it a smoke signal that your body is sending to say, hey, hi, something's up. And what is up is inflammation. Inflammation, chronic low-grade inflammation, shows up as mood imbalances for people, anxiety in some. So now we need to start reducing inflammation. So very often, working at mood balancing and anxiety issues, we will start to reduce the inflammation, but we will also nourish the adrenals. Your adrenals work really, really hard, and they will always work hard for you, but sometimes they're just having a hard time making ends meet. They may not have the nutrients they need. They may not have the juice they need to get through their day. So that's sometimes where we start as well. Another very interesting piece is the thyroid. Your thyroid has a really massive impact on your moods and on supporting your own inner fire to get through the day. And very often, when we start to ask some questions, we start to wonder, is the thyroid fully functioning and is it at its best? Well, I explain it like this. I have so many mosquito bites. Sorry if I'm scratching. Oh God, I was in the garden. It's like a fan belt in the car. So you've got all these gears and different pieces in the fan belt. Now we're talking about your endocrine system, your glandular system. Your thyroid is in there, your adrenals are in there, your pituitary's in there, your hypothalamus is another one of those organs, Your spleen is actually in there. It's one of your endocrine organs. So is your thymus and your hypothalamus. Did I say that already? Like there's quite a few organs in that system. And it's like a fan belt in a car. And if one of those organs is out, well, now it's going to start pulling the other one off because it keeps it within the fan belt. So one sort of steps up to help the other one because it can't help but have to go in the direction the other guy is going, but it's trying to come back. So we try to do some work to really fully balance everything to come back to center. And it's not a short-term thing. It is for sure, absolutely, at least 6 months worth of work, if not 2 years. And what it does involve is actually shifting you towards real food. There's so many reasons why real food is always going to be the answer. Real food provides you with the nutrients to bring everything back to center. Coupled with this is working at improving digestion, because your body needs to take food to break it down into nutrients and get those nutrients into your body. If your body can only take food and break it sort of halfway down, now that contributes to a load on your immune system and your adrenals. So now the ability to get from food down to nutrients is compromised. Now you're not getting the nutrients, but you're also adding more work to your immune system to have to deal with this stuff that's not being completely digested. Coupled with this, there's also, can you get the nutrients into your body and where it needs to go? Coupled with this, can your liver make some of those conversions into the usable forms that you need? There's so many moving pieces to this, but they are all related to the gut. They're all related to how well the core center of your body is working. What is that core center? What is that ground zero? Oh, the gut. It's always going to be the gut. And when we're talking gut, we're talking about eating those right foods that will nourish you, improving how well you can break those foods down, improving how well you can get those now broken down nutrients into your body, and helping that level at the gut be Fort Knox to keep the outside world in, the inside world in. Because your gut is, you're a donut, and your gut, gums to bum, is the outside world, right? So it's always going to be about the gut. Whether we need to nourish the adrenals, then we also focus on those foods that best service the adrenals. But if we're not improving how you digest, then you're just going to be eating those adrenal-rich foods but not getting the nutrients in. It's not that you're not able to get, it's not that your diet may not have the foods that you need. It's more like, are you able to actually get the nutrients from the food you're eating? Oh, there's like a whole other question. Does the food even contain the nutrients it used to? There's this statistic. This is wild. An orange, your grandmother, to get her vitamin C, three generations ago, she would have eaten one orange and she'd get the majority of her vitamin C for the day. Today, and this is a statistic from 10 years ago, to get the same amount of vitamin C for you, you need to eat 8 oranges. Vitamin C is not what it used to be in oranges. So are we supposed to just eat all day? I'm not actually opposed to that, but my food bill would be too much. So it's one of these questions of how our food is grown, how well we can break our foods down, how well we can get the nutrients into our body, and how well we can make any conversions and versions of things that we need for our body to function. That's at the core of everything. So I know I'm going over my 30 minutes, and I've probably lost most people. There's a couple of people still on live, but listen. I have a 2-week gut crash course that started this morning. You can register till the end of today and then it's closed. And I'm not running it until at least the fall, maybe even into January. This is the core of everything that I do. These 4 pillars of supporting your body to best do its job is open today and it closes at the end of today. The cost is $99. It is 2 half-hour video modules this week, 2 more next week, plus a 1-hour live Q&A that we do just to a private group on Friday mornings. You can watch it while it's happening live, or you can watch it afterwards if you're too busy during the day. You make it work for your schedule of wherever you're at, but there are 5 spots left for the program, and yeah, I'm not going to run it again till maybe even January. That's what that's about. So if you wanted to get in on the Gut Loving Project, and I know that, or program rather, I know there's a few that are already in. Woo-hoo! We're having fun times. We had the first module today about fats and why they're so important. You can sign up for it through the link in my profile. you can register right into part 2 of the Real Food Redux. Here on Facebook, you'll find it through my website directly. Right when you land on that first homepage, you can put your name on a wait list, or you can register, get more information about it. Don't wait for the wait list. The wait list already went out for part 2. You need to sign up today. I'll actually find that and I'll put it in the comments very shortly. So there you have it. Thank you for your question, Vashti. And there you have it. So glad you guys could join us today on this brilliant, beautiful Tuesday. I hear rain is coming. My garden is so happy. I hope yours is too. And look forward to connecting with you somewhere down the line. Share this with someone, because the way the algorithms are changing, anybody who does natural health in the world is actually being taken out of the algorithms. So my reach used to be pretty okay. It's even more drastically cut than it used to be. So if you're able to share this with anyone, I would be really, really grateful to you. In the meantime, please go make a cup of tea, make it delicious, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. Okay, take care, everybody. Salut, à bientôt. We end on